Good day and welcome back to Swimming the Ocean of Consciousness video podcast on Facebook with my co-host Lana Monday Emmett. Lana, welcome back to Swimming the Ocean of Consciousness. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. It's always a good time to be here. I always enjoy it.
Thank you so much. No, blessings, and I'm happy to have you back. This is our initial kickoff video where we're launching our Facebook video series. And yeah, I'm happy to have you as a co-host, where I will now turn you over to being the host, and I will relax and go into the ocean of consciousness with you.
Well, thank you, Elcio. So I thought it might be a really good time to start off and really explain to our listeners, our viewers, a little bit more about your book and maybe the background behind your reasoning for writing the book and what you hope that it can accomplish for other people. So the first thing I'm going to throw out to you is, so the name of the book is Swimming in the Ocean of Consciousness.
Yeah.
So I'm sure our readers would like to know, why is it called that?
Sure thing. It had many names before. It sort of became Swimming in the Ocean of Consciousness to a process of focusing in on the content material for the book. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, just so they know.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so initially, like you said, it's been a long time project of me wanting to put things together or get into the industry and publish and get my voice out and get my thoughts out. That initially had many different shapes and form, one of which still grounded is energy body activation. Swimming the Ocean of Consciousness came together from me being able to really focus and dive into the conscious aspect of all areas of my life, which we can touch on later, but meaning from an individual to an entrepreneur to a coach to a life coach to all the different aspects, but they each had to have focus and discipline. And then how do you bring that into all that life experiences, which is like skipping a stone on a lake or the water where it skips through. You have different periods of life that you touch. And within each, we can be abstracted from it and just kind of go through the motions, or we can be in the moment, centered and focused on who we are and the experience that we're having. And that was clear in my bringing the ideas of the books together, which is the first one was the story behind the story of Coach Elcio, which then led deeper into what is the ocean of consciousness. And so we settled on Swimming the Ocean of Consciousness, and it just seemed to be perfect for me, because I like to go very easily deep into to consciousness and into talking about it freely as we would any other topic or subject. It's just because it's close to me, and I've been searching for it for so long. I guess is how you would put it, and that goes back to maybe for a later day. But that's the going back to childhood and different traumas and so forth that helped me to touch within myself a light. So a lot of what you hear me talk about is light and love, and within light and love, the light comes from the source of creation, to us, our life source, and that is connected to energy body activation, and that is connected to Swimming the Ocean of Consciousness, the mind, the heart. Now, where especially what I really focus on with the life coaching is the heart. How do emotions of our day-to-day affect our conscious mind and our ability to have a clear, definite purpose and achieve that goal, whatever it is we set out to be. Ocean of Consciousness, then I like to use the word tides for emotions and waves for conscious thinking and conscious focus. And so how do you balance the tides of your emotional heart? How do you feel today? Are you angry? Like, are you ready to go? Are you ready to go? Or are you just calm and settled? But how does that change then your compass and your direction on the ship that you sail, and that ship being the vessel of this body, that light then comes through, which is the light of, I don't want to say God, but I like using the word source when we talk of creativeness, because, and the sun shines through and comes forward into our being. But that tide and that waves and comes together into our life and our beings, and that reflects into choices we make. Now we get drowned in emotion sometimes, and in those emotions we don't always navigate those waves and those tides too well. So Swimming the Ocean of Consciousness came through as a reflection of my life stories, my life experiences, not only in the focus on the professional side and maybe the focus on the artistic side, but also the childhood upbringing and those skipping stones of that era that led to, shall we call it, an awakening within myself
Mhm.
that
Right.
maybe I was a bit more, maybe the injuries, maybe, all of the things that difficulty I had to face was not my end of who all that I was. Somewhere within there, that light and love that I spoke of comes forward and comes up. And it's finding that point in the lifeline, in the flow of life where we begin to search for who we are.
Right. Right. So, I've followed you across the country. I've known you for quite some time. And um,
Thank you for that journey.
I tell you one thing I always wondered, and I'm going to ask you this.
Please.
So, at what point, like, I know you always have put things down in writing, and I know you do meditation and things like that. But at what point did you feel like that you actually wanted to sit down and take all these different thoughts and put them into words that could potentially help somebody else?
At what specific point? um,
Yeah, there had to be probably some trigger you thought, you know what?
Post surgery, sitting on a hospital bed, I couldn't walk. I was in a lot of pain because where my surgery on L4, L5 was, and a little shift to the left or right would cause nerval pain that was really severe. So I kind of would spend a few weeks where I was just sitting on a bed. I believe, and I was up late at night. My grandma was with me at that time, so she would go and come, but I had company with me. But the late nights when I was alone, I think is where I touched between, is this the end of me? I was just trying to play professional tennis before, and then the injury came, and so I'm sitting here. What's left of my life? With
Right,
all the plans that I had, and the dreams. And I think if I had to give you a moment, it would have been sitting on a hospital bed, post surgery, severe pain, and not sure I could connect anymore to who I was.
right.
If you think of trauma happening and trauma changing your life, spinal surgery at 20, 21 was a pretty life changing aspect for me.
Sure.
I would say, yeah, that would be a moment that I tapped into the ocean of consciousness,
Mhm.
um, and that I felt connected to source.
So, at what point did you decide that you could take your feelings and emotions and put them into text, right? And be able to share those with others and actually help other people. As some people call it paying it forward, some people call it, one good turn for another,
Yeah.
some people call it greater good. At what point did you realize that what you had gone through might be able to benefit other people?
That would have been another skip and a stone forward to where the doctor said I won't be able to walk again or ever play tennis again or do anything physical. I had to come just basically, take care of yourself. And I accepted it for about a minute, and then some part of me said no. And where I lived was right across from the beach, called the Great Bay Beach, and I used to walk across from my house over to the beach with some crutches. So everything I had to do is learn over. And one principle I took from my doctor that he gave to me post surgery was that if you're gonna go walk a mile, walk a half a mile because you got to walk another half a mile back. So learn
Right.
how to pace yourself in your recovery and pace yourself in life is how I kind of took that to where my recovery could go. I had
That's
no
kind of doing
expectation.
it.
Say,
That's kind of doing it. Sorry.
well, no, yeah, go ahead, please.
I was going to say that's kind of doing it incrementally because a lot of people they look at the overall task or any task that's very large and
Yeah.
it can seem overwhelming, but by being able to break it down, like you said, go the half a mile, but then you still have to do the half mile back, but you are breaking it down into smaller increments. So it is more manageable.
More manageable. Yeah, thank. I was just thinking the same thing. Yeah, and I took that not only to my recovery, I kept it all the way to life, and I kind of apply it to business and how I'm doing it here. But much like the business I do now and the things I try to achieve from this place that I'm at, it's like the vision of a hawk. It's just really deep and wide and far. It's similar to that what we were just speaking of. I also had to learn how do you take a breather and create a destination plan, because you can't just zoom into one, as you see the vision. Um, in the recovery, I had no expectation. I was only hoping to be able to moderately teach tennis and be able to move. And that was my goal, my ultimate goal. I ended up being able to do a lot more than that for a long time. I mean, I'm still running 5K marathons and so forth like that. I think coming from sitting on the bed in the hospital to being able to run again and to play tennis again and to do the things I love to do. Now, granted, I had to manage pain and learn how to
Right.
manage pain, which can go back to what we talked about, that skipping of those incremental focuses on how much
Mhm.
do you push yourself and how can you control that within the spectrum of that pain, that you could, meaning the quality of life I have is a matter of how much pain I'm willing to take and how much I can manage from injury. As I move forward with that, I realized I wasn't the only one. I wasn't the only one suffering. I wasn't the only one recovering from injuries and maybe listening to the doctor and said, no, this is your end. You can never do anything again. And then there you go, their life's over. Somewhere between there and my tennis teachings and my wanting to continue to push my tennis teaching forward, and I gotten into um, seeking more into self-awareness and yoga and meditation, which led into my life coaching destiny and journey and certification to become that and add it to my tennis and health and wellness coaching. I figured I could make a difference by not only one, sharing my story, which is what book one was intended to be. I know it's not a grand book, but it was only the first skip in the stone to tell the story behind the story of Coach Elcio.
Right.
And we figured from there we can give a little bit of a background into how all these pieces come together with the tennis, the health, the wellness, the focus, and the business. And it really came to believing that you can get up again from the worst thing that could put you down, which is not being able to walk again.
Right.
Somewhere between that, I felt if I have found a way, which took a while, how do you take this story, this your life, what happened, this injury, the surgery, because there's the things, the emotional connection to the thing that happened that led to the critical moment.
Right.
And then it's that moment that I'm not going to give up, and something is there to be had. Something is there to journey forward from there. And that is a catalyst moment that the light happened where you just see your destiny. You kind of know a path you have to take. Finding that, I realized I could share this. It just had to find a voice. It had to find a way of framing it. And
Right.
that took some time, and now we call it simulation of consciousness. So book one is the story behind the story, and book two we get more into energy body activation, which is some of the connection to how I healed my from spinal surgery. To kind of be able to do that is the learning to tap into the energy within the body.
Right. And just to build on that a little bit, um, you mentioned your physical issues that you had.
Yeah.
So what exactly is the goal of the book? It's probably not just physical. It's probably mental, emotional, spiritual, because people go through a lot of different things. So what ultimately is the goal for your book in terms of helping other people from what different aspects or facets?
Yeah, the goal of book really is to tie in and help touch anyone that's seeking first to connect to self and source. That's always a journey in back forward. Most people, no matter what their career is, they will reach a crossroads in their life. Whereas who am I becomes that big question. What am I doing, and what can I do next with my life?
Right.
In that process of that crossroad, we come to touch what I call the first stepping into the ocean of consciousness from the seashore. We talked about like having a pina colada party on the shore where everyone is living their life. And sometimes we go into that first step into the ocean, it's into the emotional heart. It's touching those wounds. It's learning how to cry. It's learning how to face the things that held you back, or the things you hold on to in life that weigh you down, from dreams, from aspirations, from your true potential. And those are things that are difficult for many people to manage.
Mhm.
And within the ocean of consciousness, I've learned to manage that, kind of like the doctor said, incrementally as I move forward.
right,
And I kind of did the same thing through this pandemic and the COVID-19. I just had to keep a focus on what I think I knew I could do and go along with the moments as they were, trying to not only be my best, but to also strive to be a bit more. And somewhere between where I was trying to be my best or hold the line to where I was gauging to try to achieve, there's that span where the skip happens. And that's that moment where emotion goes a little deeper into the unconscious mind and unconscious self to be able to move forward with uncertainty in doubtful times, in times of fear, in times of difficulty as such. And I'm hoping that my story, my ability to put the different aspects of how I healed, the different aspects of not only how I healed my body, but also where did I discover the energy? How did I overcome the emotional difficulties of my heart? And how did I bring that up into finding a voice and learning to forgive from my conscious mind, not only myself, but everything around me, and then be able from there to navigate forward in a life because we hold on to so much things that weigh us down from the things we can truly potentially achieve. And I think if we can balance those two things, that's the first entrance into the ocean of consciousness, with the emotional heart needing to be healed before we can grow and achieve enlightenment or achieve depth of self.
and that's probably really timely for now because so many people, as you and I've talked a little bit before last time, people are struggling right now with the whole COVID because it's been, this experience has been going on for such a long time.
It has. It has.
And there are so many people struggling on different levels, from spiritual to mental, emotional, physical, financial,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's tough. So it's a very timely message for things that are going on right now. So
Yeah,
let
I
me
agree
ask,
with you. Because no matter how difficult the times are, especially with COVID and so forth, I can testify from an individual, but also from a small business owner. Is that critical moment of is this enough, and do we cave in, and how we tune to taking that plunge into the ocean of consciousness, and where that skip happens. That's where you find that steel that you're made of to really hold the focus, hold the line, to be able to bring life as you see it, sort of to you as you're going towards it. And that's that journey of life that we get lost in there. And fear and doubt is the most difficult thing. We cannot have fear and doubt rule over on uncertain times. Uncertain times, sometimes you need a lighthouse of hope to be a guide to someone
right.
that can be a beacon to help you know that there is hope on the other side and there is a reason to hold on.
It's interesting what you said just a second ago. I had somebody say to me earlier this week that most people can perform well when situations and things are going well.
Yeah.
But you really find out what people are made of during those times of adversity when things are not going well at all. And you see how they react and how they handle it. Are they made of steel or do they crumble? How does it work?
Very true, very true. And the thing with adversity is we can't shy away from it.
Yeah.
But because it's kind of one of those reflective mirror type of things. It's part of life that we don't realize is there until we reach a certain point, catalyst point, that
Yeah.
that something happens that causes you to have that self-reflection, that self-awareness of self, having the emotional aspect of self, and therein adversity now takes on a different meaning.
Right.
Until then, sometimes we're unaware of it, and when we become aware of it, we have a choice whether how we let it push us or how we push back on it,
Right.
and that is the grounding part that helps us to see past all adversities. But because there's adversities physically, personally, mentally, physically, as we move forward, how do we find that grounding to navigate and sail across and still reach our goals? We don't want to give up sight of our dreams in adversity at difficult times. And that's the point is where does that happen when we say, okay, enough is enough? And what
Right.
makes that be the decision when we can hold on and strive forward from there.
And there's that old adage, it says, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And
Yeah,
there's actually truth, total truth in that,
very true,
because
very
you
true.
learn to cope and you learn to kind of ride the waves, you know what I'm saying, and
Very
deal
different
with it.
types, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Very true,
absolutely.
very true.
So if I was going to go out and buy your book, if you were going to define someone that would be a typical reader, who would you say that you wrote your book for? What audience did you write your book for?
I would say I wrote my book for someone that is seeking to find themselves, much like I was on that
We all
moment.
are to a degree.
Yeah, because
We're all evolving.
yeah, there's a sense of in the world of having to have a place to call home, and we try to build it in the world, and but
Mhm.
really the home is where the heart is, and so it's the center of the body, and we wait the last minute to reflect back into who we are and to take that journey within and to do the healing necessary to go deep into the depths of self to connect really to source within us, because we couldn't be if there was no life, and if there is life, then life is because it's within us and it comes to us, and we smile and we manifest that forward in different ways. I think in our lives we wait far too long to make that internal connection to self and source, and many people get lost when trying to find themselves and they give up. And so, Swimming in the Ocean of Consciousness is an testament to my story of overcoming adversity and difficulty, but also how I took a little bit of that grit and I turned it into becoming an entrepreneur. And I went beyond healing my body. I healed my mind, my heart, and I'm now building a business from that into the difficult marketplace of COVID-19 2021, trying to move forward. A lot of what I use to help go forward from that is in the book. And then a lot of that comes through from that life experience to just hold the line and to never kind of give in.
So I love the title, Swimming in the Ocean of Consciousness. And I know you talked a little bit about, the parallel and the different parts, but, can you tell me maybe, because I feel like you gravitate toward water a lot, and maybe that's because of where you were born, and you were near the ocean a whole lot. I know a couple of locations that you've lived throughout the United States. You've been close to the beach, and
Yeah.
maybe that gives you some, that's your happy spot. But so can you explain why? I mean, where's the connection? Is it with your early years, your love of the ocean? Why did you choose Swimming in the Ocean of Consciousness as the title?
Partly because of where I healed, which is St. Martin, my home, where like I told you, across the street, and I went over to this to see. See, what happened is I couldn't stand and walk on my own, and so I would go into the ocean up to my chest area, so just below, and where the ocean could take gravity control over me, and I could relax and learn how to kind of let my toes touch the sand.
Mhm.
And from there, I would, sit, meditate, and work to healing. That I slowly learned how to move and walk through the water, and then I started to get stronger. So the water, being in the ocean, helped me to heal, to get
Right.
back to where it was. And it was a moment of just being there, looking out at the ocean, the sun, and really feeling that, where I touched and connect into the consciousness of self and the emotional heart. And that's the first time to me where the ocean and consciousness had a relations. And my
Wow.
heart was more my emotion, the healing, the heaviness I was feeling, the bitterness, the anger, the frustration. It was in the heart, but the conscious mind could release where the body was grounded.
That's
And
awesome.
so I think in those moments, I took a plunge inside, like I said, left the sand, and I kind of always relate to having the pina colada party on the beach, or
Right.
willingness to go through the first stage of walking into the ocean up to here, to reach to the heart where the emotions are at, and then to release into consciousness. And there we can raise and become one. Some call it a higher self, some will say
Right.
spirit. So there's lots of names, but we can talk about that later when we come back to energy body activation. But that's the purpose of it. And my energy body activation to Swimming in the Ocean of Consciousness is part of my whole mythology, is because when you get to that point where you can connect physical, emotional heart, breathing, conscious mind focus, and the energy that creates and comes through from that is the lighthouse of hope that shines through and forth. That was where my healing was, in the ocean on there. And I stayed conscious through the healing, to the pain. Like I said, it was many nights of pain. So when you can go through these different points consciously, it sort of stays with you through the healing, like the tides and the waves. And that gives you that grit that is necessary to move forward in difficult times. Something that, hey, I've been through something that was supposed to break me, that was supposed to stop me, and it didn't do that. So COVID-19 is just something to deal with. And
Right.
there's something else to go forward. And so we all have something in our lives, I think, that we can bite onto, some
Mhm.
moment or something where we needed to be courageous enough for who we were and to stand up.
Right.
And we can always draw to that for strength and courage.
Right. And in reference to, I know you talk about source, and I had a student that the other day we were talking, and the topic of religion came up, and she proceeded to tell me, a lot of people in traditional religions, especially in America, they look at it almost as a one-way relationship, in that it's it's not really even a relationship. It's more, I don't want to say like someone dictating, but there's not that two-way push pull with sometimes with religion, because a lot of people want to look at, whether you call it God or source or the higher, the above, the man upstairs, whatever you want to term it. A lot of people don't necessarily have that two-way communication. And I think in terms of, you talk about enlightenment, especially in the very beginning of the book. And to me, that is more of a two-way relationship versus, you're born into a religion. You may pray to God. You may or may not feel spirit. You may or may not feel source. But it seems to me that you have developed a very two-way relationship when you talk about enlightenment and source. And I guess I'm trying to get your opinion on, do you think that that's the same or should be the same for most people? Or do you think, like, does that come from enlightenment? How does that work?
Feel free to chime in as I go along. It's a good question. I might get into a heaviness on it, but keep me on flow with it. But okay, so we'll just dance with it this way. It is for all. The There's also saying the way is for all. And I believe everyone deserves to have and to know that type of love and connection. So, like I said, the light before, the light and the love. So the light is the source within us that is God,
Mhm.
that religion teaches us to get to the gates of heaven. We can get back to religion a bit later, but as we get into the framework of, is it for everyone? It is certainly for everyone, but everyone wants to be on the seashore with the pina coladas, enjoying the party, because it's an internal. It takes work. It's an
Right,
internal journey that I can't do for you and you can't do for me. But
right,
when we come out on the shore, when we learn to go to the emotion, we come back from into source, back to this. We got to go back to the emotion, to the source. We can have conversation. Now, as we have conversation, we can share in love and light and emotions and experiences, and how we share that experiences, we can heal others, and we can, how you say, we can inspire them then to begin their own healing journey, which can lead them in many different directions.
mhm,
And I believe that that way is for all. Now, religion is and was always sort of, let's say, a vehicle.
mhm.
It's more of a principle, ritual preparation for you to prepare for the meditation that leads towards your relationship with God that you're talking about. Because
Right,
many would say seek, or I'm so faithful for so long, but I feel the love of God, but he doesn't talk to me. I hear
right,
people talk about, the guys told me this, or spirit shared this with me. And say, well, if I'm so religious and so close to God, how come I don't have that with
right,
gratefulness? How come I don't have that with her mercy, her being the mother of earth, the creation, the guide of love, and the light of the Father being creation. So I always say light and love. So love is the feminine energy, and light is the masculine energy. And with me, I like to always bring them together in equality. And I said I always walk between masculine and feminine balance, because if not, then you're too strong in one or the other. But you need to know who you are as self in that grounding moment. Um, and for there, the back and forth with source, or that happiness of joy of spirit that you're asking about, we actually born with that. We let it go.
Yeah.
And that's that innocence of the golden egg. That's the innocence that we come into the womb of
Of
life, of
wonderment.
why it's so sacred. Because when a seed goes in you for 9 months and it's released, it's so pure and so close to heaven and so close to all that God is, that we begin to then indoctrinate it with all these other things, and things
Right.
that are no longer tuned to what it was accustomed to in the incubation of the 9 months of the womb. When you would sing to it or talk to it late at night, that was a bonding between
Mhm.
not just you and the baby within you, but then you, the baby, and then an energy of life that's connected to source, connected,
Mhm.
that has nothing to do with religion. It has
Right.
to do with the energy of life that creates. And that we can always tap into. But we forget that we're born with it. We forget that we're born with that energy, with that love. And that it's all the music of love that creates the dancing, the smoothness of it. It has to be that balance. And that's why I think that we have to do the difficult work of emotional healing to get to that source.
Right. I think that's an excellent explanation.
Thank you.
Excellent. So I know we touched on this slightly last time we talked about the energy body activation.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if you could explain just a little bit more and maybe give an example of how that works. Why is it important, or what is it, and who could benefit specifically from that?
Sure thing. It takes a lot of time. it, it's a very simple question, but the answer can be very deep and wide. So it's about how I approach trying to piece it together with actually being able to try to give it to you. So I'm sorry, I might kind of go into some depth spot, but please feel pull me back if I do. At the primal level, it's about connecting to yourself, as we were talking about, and find that two-way connection to source. Now,
Right.
between there, we have a body and body. So we have this physical body when we
Mhm.
talk about the emotional heart, and as being a separate body, a part of us, and that our consciousness is not our brains. Our brains is there, but the conscious mind is separate from the brain, and that becomes another types of body element within body. So we're talking about the dimensions of the body within, while still being in the physical body, experiencing this life. This is what makes it difficult, because the energy that is the life source that flows within and through us, that is the light, and then the love that flows, that is the emotional heart that feels, that central, that is the poetry emotion. That stillness is still that underlying creative force that is the original sound, that's the original frequency, that is life. If we can consider our bodies as biological antennas, then we can tune it for healing, and we can tune it for higher communication with source, in terms more improving that two-way communication between us and the gracefulness of the most high creation. What we don't, I like to keep it neutral so we don't put names on God. And so for clarification, sorry, for clarification, that's kind of why I like to use source, because if all came from, if the word of God came to a primal source from the absolute, then source is a nice way of putting it, between that ocean of consciousness, again, connecting to the source field between here and all of that is the universe. But between that relationship between self, source, and God, we can tune our bodies, which, like I said before, I always come back to it. It begins with the emotional heart. And that's where the journey of swimming the ocean of consciousness is, to be brave and courageous enough to go within, first to touch the heart, because you're going to have to face those childhood scars or those things that hurt you emotionally, you were
Right.
never able to deal with or grow from. And those remain in the heart. But we lock them away in rooms, and I'm guilty of this.
Yeah, but
Lock
they
'em away.
make your personality.
Yeah, we lock it away in rooms, and then we have to walk down those aisles, and sometimes we reach a crossroad where you got to open those doors, and
Yeah.
you gotta let those emotions out,
It's like
and you got to.
Pandora's box.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you're either gonna have to make peace with these emotions, or you're gonna have to fight with it. And that you heard
Right.
time, the stranger in the darkness, or wrestling the dark night of the soul. There's gonna be a point where that emotion will come back, and you're either gonna be able to embrace and love it, or you're gonna have to fight with it for who comes out on top of it.
Right. Right.
That journey then leads to calmness, and that is where the awareness and the awakening comes into play, that leads towards the stream of source, which is, then leads towards enlightenment. The unconsciousness, as you release from the, let's say, the shore, or from the body, or from this reality, as you release into the heart, and you trust the emotional heart, you can find light and guidance in the spirit, or in the consciousness within the ocean. Being, so if the body is the island that we're having the pina colada on, this, I call it the ship or the vessel that we're sailing, or when we feel grounded, and when we meet together in a place where we can talk like that, it becomes that island where we can habitate and communicate. But
Right.
from there, once it takes courage to release emotionally. And you and I talked about before, where sometimes a man might feel too strong, too masculine to talk about certain things,
Right.
that will actually heal the heart. And with that, can bring light into the conscious mind, that we can live and become more, and do so much more. And
And
that
that
light is that journey.
and that's one of those things too that, like you were talking about, when you're born, it's almost like you have this purity of energy, but then we become tainted because of indoctrination, and culture and different things, maybe experiences that are self-imposed, yeah,
Well,
from our parents and
each of those are scars
yeah,
that we don't even let heal, and then when they heal themselves, they're covered by other things that we just hide away. I'm sorry, I
yes,
get a little bit animated sometimes there.
that's all
I'm
right.
like, 'cause it's kind of like my timing board. You're just hitting it right there, and I'm like, yeah, it's the scars of life, Lana. Like,
Yeah.
because the healing is important, because, and I think if you ask the question, what would I want Sumo Ocean Consciousness, maybe not just as a book, but as a brand to represent, is that healing. Because it's all through the sound of the breathing in and out, and the releasing. So hard to release. And when we release, we heal.
Mhm.
And that's the two-way street to communication with God. It's the healing. You have to truly, because I can hide from you, and you could hide the feelings that we can hide emotions,
Right.
but we can't hide it from source. Somewhere when we close our eyes, somewhere within our consciousness, we come to it, and that's the moment where we need to do the work. Now, when we do the work, we experience something that I call your magical moment, or releasing the magic within.
Well, that totally puts me in mind the next question I want to ask you. Because in your book, you talk about the phoenix, and we know that the phoenix represents the death and rebirth.
Yes.
So, how is that relative? And then you also talk about the hawk, and we can get into that in just a minute. But in terms of the phoenix, it's almost like a purification or a cleansing or ridding of the old to take on the new, renewed energy. So how how do you
I'm playing
explain?
with you, Lana. I'm having a
That's
little
okay.
life. It's the tuning
Okay.
and the dimensions of how that's how this that will play with the ears and the heart. And the phoenix is going through the emotions, going through the healing, going through who you are, because I'm not Elsie and you're not Lana. And who you are when you look at yourself in the mirror, only you know, and who I am, only I know. So there's that tuning to
Right.
who we are, and
Right.
then there's what we show others. That healing happens, and we find that we're courageous then to not only heal. For me, it was to heal the little boy inside, but then to come forward and to truly live from who you were always meant to be. Some of us never get there. And as far as the body being that tuning point, I think when we get the heart tuned in and the mind become pure, the energy that circulates through the body, that our breathing helps to control and to channel, we can raise it in consciousness to the highest point, and that tuning we can communicate with source energy and creation. And that's where meditation comes in, guided meditation comes in. It kind of leads you to, when you close your eyes and you take a deep breath, how do you go into the ocean conscious? What's there? And most people are too scared to really truly do a proper meditation. But yeah, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it. But to really relax and leave that seashore, leave your life on a seashore and just kind of relax and go into your emotions first. You got to go to that first wave that's closest to the shore. Let's go to the emotions and touch yourself. And then to be comfortable there, to swim a little deeper and connect with source, and understand that source isn't going to connect with you in that moment. As you and I are talking here, or we would meet in a coffee shop and give a handshake. So that's where we talked about the different types of bodies, the energy bodies. You connect with it with source in an energy sense. And through conscious energy, conscious life energy, we can all tap in and connect on a global sense. This brings me back to, so I'm sorry to take a reroute with you. Like I said, keep me on track.
It's all
I
right.
want to go back with you to the COVID-19, because the recovery essence of what it takes there is
Mhm.
linked into that unconscious part where we're all one in this world,
Right.
experiencing all of
Global.
this together.
Mhm.
We're in different countries, we speak different languages, but together we're all one heart,
Right.
one mind. And if we can tune the body, you could be where you are and I could be where I am, and I could feel you and you can feel me. And if that's pure, there's healing.
Yeah.
This connected healing, that when, if you, that's where the human biological antenna comes in. Sorry to get really kind of eccentric on you, but if we can tune ourselves individually where we are, we
Mhm.
can raise that energy. And I think the
Yeah,
world is
because
going to
there's
shift
strength in numbers.
correctly. Yeah. And I think we're going to a shift where many are wanting this. Many are
Right.
wanting this oneness to come back. This, because,
Right.
history says there was a period where there was this oneness with Gaia. All it lived and all it was that one with her, and she was
Right.
one with them. And that oneness came from the light that came to her through her, and that light that she, when the grid connects, that she sent back in to the cosmos, into the creation of life, and into the kingdom of God. And that is that two-way glory of the kingdom where the music really happens. And that can happen within us. That happens within us. We just have to
Right.
release all that we hold on to on the seashores, else we're not going to hear it. We're not going to feel it. We're not going to know it.
I think sometimes, I know COVID's been, we've talked about, really difficult. Sometimes I wonder too if COVID has not also made people stop, back up, and simplify their lives a little bit. They always say for every adversity, there's an equal seed of advantage.
Correct.
So I wonder sometimes because, families all of a sudden they're having to stay home and that they're actually having to talk to each other and spend time together, and people have more time now to slow down and concentrate on self-healing, self-care, wellness, all that type of thing. What do you think about that?
We're having fun again.
Yeah.
So, think of it as gratefulness. Spirit is finding it comfortable enough to play with you. What I rung the bell because of what you just said of how the difficulty that's around us in the world outside, and then we
Yeah.
stuck inside in family, stuck in bedrooms, stuck in little magic. So we're all in there, as we talked about, but we're all biological antennas, and if we're not tuned to a harmonizing frequency within the home together, one to one, that's where tension builds. That's where that frequency turns into that opposite magnetic pole. It pushes it. It's the same thing outside when we leave the home unit to go out into society. If individuals outside aren't tuned to balance, then there's always going to be some vice and some versa. But I think what COVID really brought us to that grounding position is to, back to basics.
Right.
You had to touch who you are. And then you had to learn how to live in close proximity for a long period of time as yourself with someone else that you might have just always, hey, how are you? Goodbye, see you, talk to
Right.
you later. you know,
Yep.
we we come and go out of each other's lives so quickly, and we have great pleasure in moments, but we don't take time to connect anymore as individuals.
Right,
One heart to one heart, one soul to one soul,
right,
and not have it have any sort of vice or bad intention. Just, hey, how are you, sister? Hey, love you. And that, when we joke, we say, hey, soul sister, soul brother. Like, well, okay, what these two souls connected, but there's like a light that's moving through, and there's a spark between one person say, oh, hey, you're probably from my soul tribe somewhere. Something that's just there that, hey, there's a balancing of energies that's there. And that's what I said with Rung the Bell, is that tuning where there's a balancing within who I am and who you are that resonates. We can all achieve that. And maybe it takes COVID-19 for
yeah,
the world to realize maybe now's the time then that we heal, we let the light of God rise within us to illuminate, and that illumination connects to the world. And when that connection grid happens, consciousness is raised. That ocean goes from thinking of a physical ocean up and down on the seashore, and now become an ocean of vibrational energy that covers around the earth, that we build with our human heart, our spirit of internal light of creation. That's the light and love again. That light and love built from within.
mhm,
We can heal ourselves. I talked to a friend earlier about healing. You heal yourself, you can heal your home. You can heal with your partner, you can heal with your kids. That unit is healed. When you have a healed home, that unit goes out into the world, into the community, and they bring that healing with others,
right,
that they come together in collective groups, and then
right,
they heal each other, and then that healing continues.
right.
And so somewhere
I
along the
think,
way, there's a beginning that has to happen.
I think 2021 should be the year of healing. What do you think?
It is. It's transformation and healing.
Yeah,
Transformation and healing. Yeah, a
yeah,
transformation through healing, because we have to heal the emotional heart first, in order to bring light to creation that we may transform. And swimming the ocean of consciousness, we're just here, like I said, not just an individual, not just a coach,
mhm,
entrepreneur, all these different aspects. Meaning, I experienced COVID as a small business owner, as an individual, as a coach that couldn't teach outside, I couldn't work, couldn't get within 5 feet of people. So I experienced it in different dimensions, from the
right,
different reflections of who I am, that makes me the one person that I am, those different aspects of it. And I try to share that with the healing that happened with me. That magical moment for me was recovery with the spinal surgery. And then to be able to, run a 5K. I mean, I'm not going to push you to half marathons. I won't lie to you. But, a full marathon of 26 miles is just, I think, out of my reach, but I know I can do a half marathon, so that's I set that, and I do that. I do 10Ks. And just come back from an injury taught me recently that you're not invincible. So I was training for a half marathon last fall, and I sprained my gluteus medius and my left QL muscle, and that took 12 weeks to heal, when normally I could pull through that in 3 to 4. And I really think it had to do with the stress of COVID, like so much else going on. And
right,
when that happened, it just the body, I was emotional going through some stuff, and I think all that locked into one. But what I learned again was, only way I could get through that was to release. It was such a
yeah,
difficult time. The body was healing up, COVID stuff, and I just released from all of that. And I was reminded of who I was again, and
right,
why all of these things goes. All that happens comes and goes. But if you can stay conscious of who you are in a moment, and if you can do that from a healed heart perspective, who and what you are in any adversity or situation becomes a lighthouse. You become a beacon where others that are lost, or unknown, or can't figure it out, they say, what's different about Lana? Why does she glow so much? Like, why does she always, in any difficulty she faces, she just seems to figure out a way to come back up and figure out how to move forward? What is the difference between that? And that might take a lot of discussion, it might not, but someone will recognize there's something about her that's not here. And hey, Lana, what's that? I have the light of the Lord and the love in my heart, and I'm gliding through this like a buoy to the ocean of consciousness.
Well, one thing I can honestly say, there are so many people out there that offer, different coaching services, and they've written books, but they're not always authentic. And what I mean by that is they're not written by people that have had those experiences. And that's one thing that I'm very proud, and I can say to our listeners, our viewers, is that you've had your share of experiences, and that's what you're basing your gifts that you're giving to other people on. It's not that you're just making it up, pulling it out of thin air and saying, hey, yeah, I'm just going to talk about it, never been through it, but Yeah. So thank you for being authentic and credible.
And I thank the adversity. I mean, because it's been many forms. It's been physical injuries. It's been physical, things.
Right.
It's been emotional, and a little bit of all those stories. But and then it's been mental difficult stress. Time. All of the different dimensions, the spectrums of my being, I experienced it individually and then all together at once in so many different ways. But gratefulness, mercy. I
Mhm.
mean, I think what that is that I don't put a reflection of who I am into any of that.
Mhm.
I think it has to do with that first release that you asked me about, because I learned a long time ago that life is a stream and you got to learn to just to flow with it.
Yeah.
We try to swim upstream and struggle against things, or we try to grip
Right.
onto the side. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's gonna smooth, it's gonna slow down, and sometimes it falls in the water. You reach the other
Yeah.
side. Life is gonna life. But one thing it doesn't do, it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
That
True.
stream year round, 365, we can depend on that water flowing through. And
Right.
the light and the love that flows in and through us is like the stream of life. It's
Yeah.
constant. So what about the connection between our conscious minds and our emotional hearts? What about that frequency that's off, and we can't flow with love and light as life and light flows through us? Why is it
Right.
when it comes in, we turn it into anger, emotion, jealousy, anger, hatred? We turn it into these different things that becomes ego. A
Mhm.
perspective, we take a perspective and those emotion and color the heart, and that taints the consciousness connection there. When what's coming in is pure, is what I'm trying to say. What's coming in, the light and the love that's coming in from the universe, from the atmosphere around it, all that is pure. And my personal mission is just how can I get a little closer by wrestling with this vices to where I can contain that negativity, or the desire to fall to that, and let that light stay pure, let that love stay true, and then I can share with the world. I think that's where we become lighthouses of hope. And I think reflective to what you speak of is, if you're not touched by those scars and you haven't had to wrestle with those emotions, wrestle with yourself, you don't know what it's like. And then so
Right.
you can't really guide someone else, or help to bring light to someone else, because you've never really truly,
Right.
your hands aren't beat and blooded from the adversity of life.
Yeah. That's like saying, do as I say, not as I do.
Correct, correct. Yeah, and I think I don't like to say what separates me, but I just like to say that what I bring to my coaching clients, what I bring in the material that I'm trying to do with the book and the series and everything, is a reflection of a life that I've lived.
Right.
And that is not just an individual; it's an individual that specializes in different coaching, and then the ability then to bring those different shades of myself, like fold them over, and grow into something new, because I'm pulling experiences and lights into one new mold. And then this is, we talked about the Phoenix, bringing it back to letting all of that was burn. And I
Mhm.
now emerge from that. And what I talked about being that tuning fork earlier is where the hawk that learned how to soar is when I can stay grounded in this body, but release. And as the hawk soars, my consciousness soars and swims to a different ocean of consciousness. So as I reach a new elevation,
Mhm.
I'm no longer really swimming through this ocean and this earth, this Gaia. I'm now swimming to that eternal cosmic ocean.
Mhm.
And I'm now connected to source. And that's where those tides and those waves of that cosmic ocean is that two-way communication you're saying that religion wants to lead us to.
Right. Right. Well, gosh, that's a wonderful explanation.
So you see, that's one of those moments I got caught up in my old poetic self. Sorry.
Oh, I think it's wonderful. That wonderful. And that's probably a good time maybe for us to stop today.
Sure.
But I'm thinking, I think next time maybe we should really look at focusing on COVID and popping back, returning back to normal from COVID, because there are so many people that are struggling. And I'm sure that you have a lot of insight that folks could really use during this time, because it's going to be a period of rebuilding, of, you know, probably even adapting to new ways of doing things, because even though, you know, we've temporarily become accustomed to dealing with things in one respect now, or one aspect. I don't know that we're going to 100% go back right away to normal, and there's still going to be some transition. Like, I suspect, even myself, I think the way that we do business, the use of video, you know, technology, I think that that's may actually continue even way past COVID, you know, because there are, say, cost savings associated with businesses doing that. You know, where even more people are going to be working from home than were pre-COVID.
Yes.
So I think there are a lot of changes, and there's still going to be a lot of things people will have to adapt to. And I think that might be a good conversation, definitely, for us to continue in our next podcast. What do you think?
Hey, Lana, I totally agree with you, and I definitely would like to share some of my insights from as a small business owner and as an individual, because, like I said, those two aspects of myself were part of that recovery. And one thing I would say is, you know, there needs to be determination and having grit to go through adversity and difficulty. And we can pick it up later, but I think those are one of the things that I had to apply. And as far as the transformation goes, that transformation is happening, and especially in an industry like mine, where I'm used to doing coaching one-on-one, close to being with groups of people at bigger stuff. Our governor just recently, you know, released a two-phase type of reintroduction to open a business. Where phase one, he's still encouraging, like you said, video meetings, these types instead of getting back into the personal one-on-ones. It's going to take some time, and I think we have to be able to be willing to adjust and adapt to that. And the problem is, how does businesses survive? Because there's still bills to pay, and that revenue isn't flowing, and you have to adjust it accordingly. And so that's been the difficult part, and I'm sure everyone is going through that difficulty part.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
You know, and you look at different industries, even like food service, restaurants and bars and those type of things. And I mean, I've seen so many small businesses that they're just like teetering, and they're like, okay, do I want to keep, you know, trying to stay open and stay afloat, or do I want to keep incurring debt to be able to look at, you know, what's on the other end? And I think, you know, maybe having some good coping strategies for people, that would probably be very encouraging and a very worthy discussion at this time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would love to share that some more with you.
All right, that sounds good. Well, I guess, everybody, we will see you next time on Swimming in the Ocean of Consciousness.